Welcome to Davos Ignite, where we have conversations with global thinkers. Welcome to Davos Ignite, where we have conversations with global thinkers. And speaking with me right now is Manish Kejriwal of Kedaara Capital. Manish, you are a Davos veteran. And you've done a beautiful piece today where you say this time Davos feels different. Is it because of Trump?
No, I don't think it's because of Trump. I think the world's a much more complicated place. If you see what we talked about, graduating college when I did, even though we were a lot less worldly wise, the Berlin Wall was falling. You had perestroika going on in Gorbachev. The world, we all ran to Berlin. We happened to be in Budapest. Even though you were fewer resources, you felt optimistic for the world. My son graduated from Columbia. There was violence around Columbia last year. But it's the world they're moving into is so different. Instead of going multipolar, you're going unipolar. Instead of going multilateral, you're going single way. Who would have thought economically the tariffs would do what they did last year? But that itself falls into complete myopia when you look at, in this January, you suddenly had both Venezuela and now Greenland, right? So it is a very different place. I think we need to be very thoughtful. Of course not, we are little red dots, the people that matter, the global leaders, 6 of the G7 are here. I think there is some serious need for very intense Davos-like discussions, which is better, I'm sorry to say, kept private. It's not in the social media, because once you're out in the open, part of that becomes ego taking over or positioning, if you remember.
But that's exactly what's happening, right? Everything is out in the open. Yeah. 6 of the G7 leaders are here. Some of them have had slanging matches already on social media. They will be in the same room over the next couple of days. We don't know what's going to happen when Trump speaks. All of this geopolitically seems unnerving. But on the other side, if you look at it from an investor's lens, US equity markets are doing great. Economy is doing fine. IMF outlook on which has come in today, globally on inflation, India is fantastic. So some would say, maybe Trumpians would say, what are you complaining about?
No, fair point. And I think let's keep the two separate. I think as far as India is concerned, frankly, we are a domestic market. As investors, we do most of our investments in financial services and consumer. For us, India is the world, in a matter of speaking. None of our financial products companies, barring a few fintech ones, look at global markets. They're all domestic markets. If you look at the consumer, one of our largest plays last year was Lenskart, Vishal, Megamart. 95% of their revenue is domestic. So what's happening globally didn't affect us that much, right? The US markets is a totally different driver. If you look at the US markets and you remove expenditure on AI and what the big, the big 7 stocks, the tech 7 stocks, the Max 7 stocks have done, the overall economy is not that healthy. I'm no expert in the US economy. You hear people talking about stuff, but if you look at just the amount of investments going into AI, not just in technology companies, but in data centers and hence in power companies, that's what's really driving the economy right now in the US. I do think that he's also doing what's right for the country, for his country, right? Getting jobs back. So if you look at it from a very MAGA perspective, whether it's getting, the question is, will you ever make shoes ever again in Minneapolis or in? So some of it is overreach, but that's his negotiating style. He knows he's in a position of power. Look at Greenland. Who would do that? But what do the Danes do? What does Greenland do? Barring international multilateral pressure, he can go take, if you could take out Maduro from his fortified home in Venezuela, Greenland's an easy target. The only thing that can keep the world where it is the multilateral institutions working. And that is what I'm worried about. The UN played its role phenomenally for the last 75 years. Today, when not only the US, but multiple other countries challenge the authority of the unit, I don't even know if we can call it the authority of the UN, or of the Security Council, they will essentially force each other to behave in a similar manner. So you will have a situation where what happens in Greenland will be followed up with what's wrong in Putin getting Zelensky in a nice hotel room in Moscow, or the Chinese going across the straits to Taiwan.
Might is right. We live in a world where might is right. For a lot of our viewers watching and looking at this also from the lens of their investments, the horizon, etc., where does India stand in all of this?
See, I think it depends, right? India as a market is already huge, fourth largest economy, growing larger. I think people are recognizing the criticality, but it's not today. I mean, today, if you're a global player, you could ignore India, right? I think when you see what's happening in Asia, you see a pivot away from some of the Asian countries like China. The Japanese did this very early. A lot of our investments coming in, whether it's that bullet train from Bombay to Delhi, many others, the Japanese did that because they didn't want all their eggs in one basket. It was a diversification. Likewise, when you see the global funds, given there have been very few exits out of China, a lot of that money is now flowing into not just India, but into Japan, India, and Australia, as far as Asia is concerned. I think India remains a phenomenal source of entrepreneurs, of manpower. I mean, not just the tech companies globally, whether it's Satya, whether it's all the other tech, whether it's IBM or Google, but it's also now in consumer. You had Lakshman heading Starbucks, you have Lena heading Chanel. That was so as a source of talent, but is huge already, and it will remain huge. We're a seventh of the world population, so both as a source of talent and a market. The market, I think, given where our population curve is, was in the early years of it, and that's only bound to increase. So, but I don't think any one company is dependent on India. But increasingly, even while the private investors have moved to India, increasingly the global strategics will look at India, whether it's Bombardier with aircraft, whether it's an Embraer, and so on and so forth.
So what are the red-hot sectors or spaces that you find interesting, Manish? Do you think, you talked about some of the investments which have really done well, Lenskart, etc. Do you think it's tapped out, or there are many more companies like that to discover, and which sectors are they in?
Listen, if you look at where we are as a country, we're at the tip of that iceberg, right? And no matter how good we've had it in the last 15 years, remember when I came back to India in the late 90s, there was no product called mortgage. You had to have full check, full cash, and buy a house. We own a mortgage company, which we built for 7 years. We finally sold it recently to another private equity player. But the market penetration is so low right now that even though you fight for market share, the size of the market, we're at literally the tip of the eye. So the best is yet to come. I mean, look at asset management, mutual fund industry. What was the AUM 10 years ago? What is it today? What it could be 10 years from now, which is the beauty, right? The market in financial services as a proxy to the rest of the economy is huge. Vishal, when we took it over, or Lenskart, when we invested in it, it's a fourfold growth in between 6 and 7 years. And again, you're at the tip of the iceberg. So I think if I step back, what you need is extremely strong management teams to capture the opportunity, right? And secondly, how do you deal with systems that are challenging the old, with the Blinkits and Zeptos? Today, a Nykaa competing with a traditional mom and pop, or a Purple competing with Nykaa and other cosmetic companies. You need to be smart on how to play both the offline and online spaces. But in terms of consumer demand, there is no end.
So let's squeeze it down. 3 interesting ideas.
3 ideas.
Yeah.
Then if I give you those 3 ideas, what does my team do next year?
Give our viewers something, Manish.
Let's get it this way, right? We love financial services. I think financial services are a proxy for a country's economy. If a country is growing, let's say, at a certain, let's say 20% growth, the financial services in that country will grow at a certain multiple of that, at a 30 or 35%, right? So if you think India is going to have a 7 or 8% secular growth rate, financial services will grow by 15. Almost half of our investments were in financial services, primarily in lending only. Increasingly, we're doing non-lending, so insurance, asset management, yada, yada, yada. Same thing with consumer space. The two others that we're spending a lot of time now, it's about building up a skill set. One was around tech services, not the classic IT, Infosys like old world stuff. I'm sure they're doing lots of new stuff. And again, we don't want to end up competing with the Googles and the Microsofts of the world. So instead of jumping into and investing in what I call the gold mine, you invest in the shovels. So we recently took a controlling stake in a company called Impetus. What does that do? It does, before a company can be truly AI ready, it needs its entire data to be organized properly. This is what the company does.
Okay.
So you've got to think through, AI is a huge animal. Do we want to play in that? So is it going to be huge? Yes. What is our chances then of winning in that space when you're competing with the best in the world? And India, as we all know, is slightly behind the curve on AI. So then what do? You look at a market which is attractive. Maybe it's in the India-US corridor. You look at your labor arbitrage. You look at your skill sets, and so on and so forth. So I think going forward, I didn't want to skirt around your question, financial service and consumer will remain huge. Tech services will increasingly increase. And it's also not as highly prized as consumers in India. And finally, both healthcare and healthcare services. So whether it's diagnostic chains, we own one called Vijaya. Going forward, we also have a fertility clinic. The need for those, not just in the big cities, Tamanna, as you know, but especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, the demand is great. The question is, in the Indian context, understanding unit economics, how do you make money in a very value-conscious state and keep your mind? So you have to grow, but you need to grow profitably. You can't either grow or not grow, or make money, not money. You have to make money and grow a hell of a lot.
Wow. Before we wrap up, Manish, we spoke so much about Trump. I don't know if you get an audience with him, but if there was one line you could say to Trump, what would it be in the camera?
Take a break.
Okay. On that note, we'll take a break as well. Manish Kejriwal, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tamanna.